I think the rupture that he's talking about looks more like a ripple. And when he is talking about, I
really?
absolutely do.
CBC panel from tonight. It's actually fascinating. The conservative on the panel, Kate Harrison, absolutely cooks. Let's watch.
We're going to turn now to the power panel and talk about all of the things. We've got Sherelle Evelyn. She's the managing editor of the Hill Times. Kate Harrison is a conservative political analyst. Amanda Alvaro is a former Liberal Party communication strategist. And Jordan Leichnitz is a former NDP strategist. So, Amanda, Greenland looks safe for now. What do you make of the evolution of the day?
Incoming Trump derangement syndrome.
That is such a tough question to answer because I think Katie did such a good job, kind of like the whiplash, the almost feels like, I remember I would get these summaries at home when like my little kids, you know, my JKs would come home and they'd be all over the map and you weren't sure what to pay attention to. And Trump feels a little like that between the tantrums and you know, taking us one way and then the next in his storytelling. It is always an odd day. There's a lot of hyperbole. There's a lot.
It's truly incredible the way Canada's largest media company talks about Trump. And then we wonder why there's issues right now with America. This has been happening for now, Trump term 1 and throughout Trump term 2.
Lot of rhetoric. Is there a deal? Maybe there isn't a deal. I think Katie makes a good point. Until something's on paper, it never feels like it's truly signed. Was this a case of Taco? You know, was he chickening out at the last minute? There was something in his speeches that felt almost like, you know, he can take that really menacing tone over social media. And he kept mentioning things about being liked or disliked. And you almost had this sense as a true narcissist that like the mounting criticism might be getting to him, and he was taking more of this palatable tone.
Is this your first day watching Trump? First day? Question mark?
In his speech. So you wonder, you know, today the tariffs are off. They could be back tomorrow. But at the same time, the last point I'll make is that it did give an opportunity for other world leaders like our own to start setting new agendas, you know, new narratives about the world order, new ways that middle powers can.
This is so funny. World doesn't work like that. What are we going to do compared to America?
Take their role. And I think if we get anything out of this mess of the last couple of days, we can take that as a positive highlight.
Well, you know, Jordan, just
incredible TDS. I'll keep the interview moving, but she speaks one more time on this panel.
Build on what Katie Simpson was telling us. This is what the New York Times is reporting on what is in this framework. The announcement followed a NATO meeting on Wednesday where top military officers from the alliance's member states discussed a compromise in which Denmark would give the United States sovereignty over small pockets of Greenlandic land where the United States could build military bases, according to 3 senior officials familiar with the discussion. This is obviously a sensitive diplomatic matter. The idea was one Mr. Rutte had been pursuing, and as Katie said—
That guy's impressive, Mark Rutte.
To the officials compared it to the UK bases in Cyprus, which are regarded as British territory. So essentially not all of Greenland, but enough of Greenland that you can put a bunch of US soldiers on it, call it the US, even though they have the ability to have a military presence there.
So Trump won? Trump got a lot?
Under that 1951 treaty. So that's what we are learning. What do you make of it all?
Well, I certainly think that what we're seeing is a de-escalation compared to the threats we saw from Trump over the last few days. And I can't help but think that the Prime Minister's speech and the strong European reaction to it might be part of that, because this is really the first moment.
Yeah, Mark Carney, the leader of what, the 10th, 12th biggest economy, really swayed Trump in one day. Man, that's funny.
I think that we've seen a cohesive response to Trump. And I think it was very much organized around what Mark Carney put in the window yesterday. Now, when it comes to the question of America—
We wish, that's so funny. To any other country watching that, you'd be like, you think Mark Carney, the PM of Canada, like Canada's not a nothing country. We're a little powerful, but compared to USA, no.
military bases in Greenland. Of course, you know, and many viewers would know, the agreement from the 1950s actually allows a pretty much unlimited American military presence in Greenland already, as long as it's done in consultation with the country. So because that never really seemed to be the actual issue driving Trump on this, I'm not sure that this agreement is going to put an end to his threats of annexation. But it certainly seems like there was something that he heard in Davos, perhaps among the world leaders, that has caused him to back off a little bit today.
It might have been, Kate, the stock market sell-off, the threats of the trade bazooka, as the Europeans call it, and all of these things. But, you know, I don't know how NATO survives 3 more years of this president with the way it has gone in the first.
Man, I'm going to play that one more time. Why are you saying that? What is the point of these news stations? Is it to try to make Trump upset? Carney already did that, the provoking in his speech at Davos the day before Trump spoke. What that statement as a Canadian, what I think is David just said, really bothers me. That's very reckless to sit there and say. That's going to get back to Trump probably.
I don't know how NATO survives 3 more years of this president with the way it has gone in the first year.
Yeah, I think that there has always been a question around the survivability of NATO, even if you go back to Trump term number 1, right, calling in everybody's delinquent tabs, and it seems to be in a more precarious position than before. But at the same
then from here forward, she cooks.
Time, we are in, I think, a better place today than we were yesterday or the day before in terms of, you know, the perspective of a military occupation of Greenland. And now it seems at least there's a path forward, one that NATO is a part of, and one that...
Exactly, but you got David going, I don't see how NATO survives.
You know, to use Jordan's word, looks like a de-escalation or a climb down or a shift. I think it's markets, not Mark Carney, that probably resulted in that adjustment being made. But I do think...
You don't know the real reason, but that's a way better guess, the market, than Mark Carney's speech.
You know, to pull on something Amanda said, I wonder how Canada's response to this might have looked tomorrow or later today if Trump had spoken first. And I think that, you know, the message that we got from the Prime Minister yesterday looks a little bit strange compared to the situation we have now. I think the rupture that he's talking about looks more like a ripple. And when he is talking about, I absolutely do. I absolutely do.
Let's go.
I think that he is right now, you know, talking about new world orders, trying to carve out, you know, a new international way of doing things, as opposed to doing the job that he was elected to do, which is to get back to the negotiating table and get an agreement with our largest trading partner. So when we have the climb down today on Greenland, you compare that to the real cut and thrust of his remarks yesterday, which were entirely about, you know, adjusting to a new world order in the wake of the Greenland threat and calling out the president for doing that. Well, European countries now have no new tariffs coming in on February 1st, and Canada still has ours. So how did the remarks on Monday tee us up to get back to the table for a discussion on trade when everything was revolved around that ostensible threat to Greenland, which now looks a lot different today than it did when Mark Carney spoke?
Okay.
Unbelievable. CBC needs more of this. That was fantastic. That's probably the biggest highlight I've seen on a CBC show in a long time. I can't even think of one. That was fantastic. And that is what these like liberal elites, if you want to call them that, they got to hear the other point of view on things. I've been clamoring for that ever since I started trying to get this channel more going.
I concede NATO not having to deploy to defend NATO territory from the aggression of a NATO member is a good thing.
Of course.
But the U.S. is still throwing its weight around and bullying everybody who doesn't agree with it. We still have national security tariffs on core industries here. He went and lectured the Europeans today for not being grateful enough for the Second World War and told the Swiss, who speak German, they'd all be speaking German if it wasn't for the U.S. That is more than a ripple, Kate. Like whatever Mark Carney and what he's doing, what the U.S. is doing is way more than a ripple.
Canada.
Okay, what's the point of this guy on the panel? Aren't you supposed to be like a moderator? Now you're just debating one of your guests? Maybe I don't quite... Well, I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. If you want to be on the panel and debate, maybe I don't quite understand the show?
He's doing, what the U.S. is doing is way more than a ripple.
Canada seems to be responding to every whim from the White House. Our news media ecosystem is enveloped by this. Everything that happens out of the White House is something that Canada ostensibly needs to react to right away with a brand new comms and message. I think that rather than the speechifying, we need to get back to the actual doing of things and the actions. And part of that is the very job that the Prime Minister was elected to do less than a year ago, which is to build out the relationship with the United States. I think the speech Monday did not help advance that objective. It got him some nice headlines. It was a well-crafted speech delivered to an audience that was primed for that message, and I give him credit for that.
I don't. That speech sucked. That speech got a bunch of people all fired up in Canada to be even more TDS.
But there is a difference between speechifying and actually doing things. And again, I think that you compare what he said Monday to where we are today, and it looks a lot different.
Cheryl, your thoughts on any of that and what the president said about Mark Carney today?
It almost, by the way, makes it like Canada moves into pole position for countries that Trump may continue to troll. Canada now kind of becomes the natural place where Trump's going to go, what, are you trying to embarrass me in front of the entire world, Mark Carney?
Yeah, trying to parse everything I've just been hearing.
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead just because her take on this show, she speaks a little bit at the end. Her take, it's not really explosive one way or the other, so I'll just go back, pick it up somewhere around here. I'll go there, yeah.
Working together to counteract what is coming from Washington.
Well, Amanda, we've seen the spines of European leaders stiffen quite considerably since the first months of the Trump administration. The EU cut off trade talks indefinitely. They were preparing massive trade retaliations against the United States over this. And the fact is that people who are part of the military alliance have been getting threatened by the biggest member of that military alliance. I just wonder, how you view I don't know, ripple versus rupture and what the president said about Mark Carney, because there is a risk of what the prime minister said in his speech having some blowback, no question, from the White House.
I mean, I always appreciate Kate's smart commentary, but referring to it like a ripple is like referring to a tsunami, like a small wave. I mean, I don't know how you can watch what Trump has been doing, the Trump administration has been doing, the chaos that they've caused globally, and suggest that it's just a tiny little ripple that we should be unconcerned with. I mean, Carney's gone on 60.
Look at her sitting there, kind of like just a boss. That the glasses should come in there, those thug life glasses.
Trips looking to diversify our trade relationships. Canadians elected him to make sure that our economy doesn't plummet. And in the face of what Trump's doing, that means looking elsewhere, looking to other borders, looking to other nations, forming new deals, new partnerships, new alliances. That's what he's doing. And I think that's what Canadians expect us to do. I have to imagine, is the suggestion that conservatives in this role would just be, hopeful, and hope is not a strategy, hopeful that a deal with Trump could get done? That's an absolutely ridiculous way to govern in the face of the chaotic and unpredictable and unhinged nature of President Donald Trump. So, I guess I emphatically disagree with the idea that it's a ripple of any sort.
Okay, Jordan, and I do want to get Kate in one more.
So what, your strategy is just constant Trump derangement syndrome and have a hissy fit about every little thing Trump does or says, especially what Trump just says?
Tom, Jordan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that what's happening right now is a complete rupture with Canada's past relationship with the United States and the United States' relationship with its allies globally. I think the challenge for the Prime Minister is that the speech and sort of the guy who turned up to deliver that speech yesterday was the same Mark Carney who was elbows up during the campaign, but we haven't seen a whole lot of that in between these 2 points. So the question to me is, going forward, does this speech represent a change in his attitude and his strategy towards the United States? Or is it really just a distillation of his analysis of what's happening with the US? We have to see, because he has often made the choice in that intervening year to take decisions that are less confrontational with Trump and are more designed to keep Canada out of the limelight and off his target list.
Okay, so Kate,
That's a fair point. Will we see more of the elbows up Carney or more of the conciliatory kind of friendly Carney? We will see, because during the campaign, it was definitely elbows up. So was that Davos speech.
Going back to the issue of not having a trade deal, and I know a lot of people would prefer to have this settled, but you know, the UK and the EU did have whatever they have. They thought it was settled, then they got threatened with tariffs unless Denmark gave up 90% of its territory. Now that's not where it's apparently ended up, but they're giving up chunks of Greenland to him because he demanded it or else, right? So how do you reasonably get a deal with an administration that is acting like this and treating its partners like this? I mean, I just don't know what the path is.
Well, you start by getting back to the table, and the Prime Minister was elected to do just that. He said he was the right guy for the job in order to get back and have, again, his words, a new economic and security partnership with the United States. I know the last 9-10 months has been disruptive. I think that's putting it lightly. For decades and decades and decades before that, we had a stable and secure relationship with our largest trading partner. Going to Davos and giving a speech talking about a significant break in that relationship that serves as the grounds to, again, pursue we're not just talking about trade diversification, but rewriting the nature of relationships that we have with countries, including up until 9 months ago, our enemies. There's a difference between diversifying and then that wholesale shift that the Prime Minister is, I think, making the case for today. We have to remember that the U.S. is going to exist long after Donald Trump. Our relationship with them is very, very close. The Prime Minister was elected to try and get a resolution there, and that should remain part of the focus. So, and speechifying and then not even meeting with the man while there, to me, doesn't advance the Prime Minister's apparent objective of getting back and getting to the trade and negotiation table.
Okay. Exactly. It makes it look like it's just all about Mark Carney and his ambitions, his political ambitions. USA, whether Trump's in office, whether it's Obama, Biden, whoever, is by far the most important country to Canada. And there's not even a close second. Like, the gap between every other country in terms of importance and USA is like the entire screen here. USA is up here. Every other country is down here, whether you diversify or not.
Sherelle, last 30 seconds and we got to take a break.
I do think that there is a difficulty with saying, trying to appease. We've seen the appeasement just not work. I do think that Mark Carney was very careful. He said American hegemony at one point, but he didn't actually call out the United States by name, even though everybody knew who he was talking about. And I do think that is still there, and that is still, I think, an issue, that Canada is not willing to call things what they are when it comes to the United States, out of fear of that blowback from the U.S. and the president.
But it seems to me like we're just dancing around and
the speech was very anti-USA, but okay.
Avoiding it altogether, as opposed to, again, trying to advance a conversation for the sake of steel workers and aluminum workers in this country who now face tariffs when our European friends do not.
If the conversation can be advanced, this is what we don't know from the U.S. side. You know what I mean? Like, well, what is it we see from Donald Trump that suggests reasonable advancements can happen? This is what I'm looking for evidence for.
I think there were signs coming from our government and coming from their government back in the fall that things were close until the Reagan ad was released and there was problems there. But that was probably the closest we've been, and it doesn't seem that there's been any effort from the Prime Minister to get back to the table since that time.
Okay, final take for this video. We are in this position, I would argue, in large part because of the mismanagement of our country when Trudeau was PM being advised by Carney. We're now in a very weak position to negotiate. We were in a better position back in 2015 when Harper was still PM. We're in a way weaker spot now. So a lot of our problems are self-inflicted in Canada, makes us have a weaker negotiating hand. But anyway, with that said, I'll finish the video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Have a great day.